Man, some of these houses sure do look nice.
Yeah, I mean, there was that one that we passed a couple of minutes ago with a giant reaper on the roof. And the gravestones with cobwebs and... that looked so amazing. Someone spent a lot of time on that thing.
Though feels like for every awesome house, there are like 3 stinkers with barely anything on it. Sure, they usually have a classic pumpkin outside, but other than that, nothing. No skeleton, no fake creepy figures, no nothing.
Well, I mean, it's not that bad. Sure, maybe some of these houses don't look that scary, but you don't always need a house to look scary for it to have something creepy.
Yeah, you do bring up a good point. And those kind of houses don't need a special day to have it be scary. Being scary is just a part of their everyday life.
Sounds like we'd have something in common with those kind of places.
You got that right. Though, I don't think you seem that scary to me.
Really? Well, maybe you might change your mind when you hear this. I'm a great believer that after death, you will have a choice. Move on to the next stage, or hang around where you're not wanted. I'm also a believer that a lot of people choose the latter. About 15 years ago, my friend, who I'll call Stu, and I were out on our motorbikes on a Sunday evening. And believe me, we used to get up to a lot of stupid things when we were on those bikes. And tonight was no exception. We decided to take a ride up to the Downs, which is a huge set of wooded hills surrounding the seaside town where we live. These hills have a lot of history and are still a much-used suicide spot due to cliffs which form part of the Downs. After about 5 minutes of riding on the main road, we came to a set of steps cut into the hillside, which, after about 10 meters or so, became part of the hill and then went into the woods. We stopped and pulled in at the foot and, together, stared up into the gloom. By now it was dark, and also, typically, it started raining. Our bikes were little trial bikes to which we had done a few modifications. Mine was great for top speed, a massive 72 miles per hour. Stu's was stupidly quick on acceleration. Before I knew what was happening, Stu had pointed his bike towards the steps and zoomed up them into the dark and out of sight. I was left there, alone to ponder how wet it was getting, when 20 seconds later or so, at the top of the steps, Stu's back wheel appeared from the pitch dark, closely followed by the rest of the bike, bouncing down the steps, with Stu still on top, looking unstable to say the least. Backwards, he allowed the bike to roll down the steps until he reached me, and then, without a word, he sped off up the road. And again, I was left there alone, this time wondering why he was in such a rush. I thought I'd better follow him, as I could see he had stopped about 50 meters up the road. I rode up to him just as he was taking his helmet off. The rain, by now, was pouring down. There was also thunder and lightning. But what I was more concerned about was the look on his face. He was pale and basically looked like at death's door. "What's going on?" I asked. Did you see that?" he said. We both looked back down the road at the same time, to the steps, which only the few nearest the road were visible. It looked just as we had left it. "What happened?" I asked, this time with a grin on my face, expecting him to say his bike had a malfunction or something. There was something at the top of the steps. My headlight shone right on it. Again, we both turned and stared down the road to the steps. And to my total amazement, this time it was not as we had left it. There was something there, moving very slowly, making its way down the steps. In the complete darkness, it was clearly visible. It glowed. It moved smoothly and without hesitation. More alarmingly, without legs. It was not touching the ground. It moved slowly, but seemed to cover a lot of ground fast. With no time for the helmets, we slung them over the handlebars and absolutely pushed those bikes to their limits to get the hell out of there. As we rode, we both knew that we had a choice to make. There was a crossroads coming up. Left would take us deeper into the downs, and right take us back towards the town, but also bring us on a close parallel but lower road to where we were trying to get away from. We went right. By now, Stu had begun to pull away from me, being that his bike was quicker than mine. For years I gave him a grief about it. I had just begun to get myself back to a safe, roadworthy state, only to lose it all over again. As I rode past and under the section of the road where the steps were, I forced myself to look up the hill. And why I did that, I don't know. And there it was. Through the rain and the pitch black, I saw it. Just standing there. A body with no legs. With one arm by its side and the other outstretched as if it was pointing at us as we flew by. And to this day, I thank God that my bike didn't break down there and then. One more thing happened which I never told Stu about. As I rode by, I could have sworn that underneath one of the claps of thunder, I heard a god-awful scream. I've seen those step a few times since that night and often wonder if what came down them can see me.
Somebody had some common sense that night. If it was a horror movie, wouldn't one have been all, hey, let's check it out, and then BAM! Dead.
Curiosity killed the cat?
More like stupidity killed the cat, but that didn't happen. So no stupid deaths that day.
But come on, though. If they all died, then how could I have heard about it and tell it to you now?
You could have just made all of it up. Come on, though. Let's keep moving. There's somewhere I want to visit first before we keep going.
Wait. We're heading downtown? You really wanna...
Yes! I do. It's been a long time since I last saw them, and I need to see them. I'm starting to forget their faces.
I understand. Lead the way, then.
This actually kind of reminds me of a story I had a bit ago. It's about a mother and her child. And it goes a little something like this. So before I start, I just want to say that this isn't an experience, more description throughout my life. I need some answers to my problem, and I want to know if there's anyone else out there that is like me. People who are born with this gift of seeing ghosts seem to have it all their lives. Not me. I was born, and it seemed that through my toddler years, I would see and hear people that weren't there. My parents told me that my eyes would wander as if I was watching an invisible person walk across the room. All this stopped when I turned 4. Then when I was about 5 or 6, it started again. And this time, I remembered it. I would see black figures or hear and sense things that weren't there. Gradually, it started happening more and more often to the point that I would see something at least once a day. Then when I was 9, it slowly stopped, and I hardly ever saw anything. Now, for these past couple of years, I've been seeing things more and more often. Think of these things like a chart, and how often I see things go up and down, making a wavy line. Right now, I'm at the peak of the wavy line. So I'm seeing things every day. They just appear in the most random of places where I least expect them. I usually see them as black figures, and when they move, it's like when you watch tennis on an old TV, and the ball looks like a line, so it sort of leaves an aftershadow that fades quickly. Or I see them like I see any other human being. Only I can just tell that's a ghost. Sometimes they just speak to me there, and I can reply sometimes. And I know this sounds nuts. They speak in my head. Or send me a telepathic message, which I can also reply to in my head. I don't know anyone else who has these phases and can speak to ghosts in their minds. So I would just like to know if there's someone else and how I can, I guess, deal with these things. Your help would mean a lot. Thank you.